Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:46 PM and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby? Mr. Helmer?
Here.
Ms. Connick?
Here.
Ms. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Seidel?
Here.
Ms. Spindler?
Here.
Mr. Zelinski?
Here.
Ms. Crosby let me know she's unavailable this evening, so I would next ask for a motion to recess to closed session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session and pursuant to section 19.85 1C E and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider approval of closed session minutes, employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I'll say I have a motion by Mr. Seidel and second by Mr. Zelinski. Please call the roll.
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Connick?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Ms. Spindler?
Yes.
We're moving to closed session, we'll return to open session around 7 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, this is correct. It's now 7:06 PM, and we are returning from closed session to open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. And now, for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the City Library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. First, we will have privilege of the floor, and we do have one this evening. Meetings of the board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the schools, and therefore are not public meetings, but meetings held in public. The portion of the meeting is an opportunity for you to come and voice your concerns to the board. So please do not be offended when we quietly listen. We may even take notes. We do not immediately respond to your questions and comments. This is a time for you to talk and us to listen. Thank you for coming to voice your comments and concerns. When I call your name, please step up to the microphone, address the chair, and state your name and whether or not you are a resident in the school district. Each presentation is to be restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Privilege of the floor will be limited to 1/2 hour. Presentations are not to be designed for purposes of engaging others in a debate in this forum. Discussion of certified, classified, or professional personnel or of individual Board of Education members shall not be considered an appropriate topic for this forum, and the speaker will be ruled out of order. Matt Gunlack?
Yep, that's me.
Thank you. Good.
Feel very honored, very privileged. Did not expect to be the only one here, but here I am. But thank you for taking the time, and I did time it. It is 3 minutes or less, so. Do appreciate you all being here, not just to suck up. My parents were both in public education, and I just really appreciate anyone who puts their time and energy into making our public schools better, and that obviously includes all you, so thank you. My name is Matt Gunlock. I live at 4320 South Regal Manor Drive here in New Berlin, so I am in the district. I'm here tonight to express my strong support to adopt a district-wide 4K program. As a parent of 2 very young kids, I know that toddlers are little bundles of chaos, but they're also sponges, ready to learn. 4K is anything but new in the state of Wisconsin in 2017, so 8 years ago. 95% of school districts in Wisconsin had a 4K program, and today it's almost impossible to find a district without one, and I have tried. Looking at just our nearby neighbors, right? We've got Elmbrook School District, which has 4K. Pewaukee School District has 4K. Kettle Moraine School District has 4K. Mukwonago Area School District has 4K. Muskego Norway has 4K. Franklin Joint School District has 4K. Whitnall School District has 4K. School District of Greenfield has 4K. West Allis, West Milwaukee School District has 4K. Milwaukee Public has 4K. School District of New Berlin, of course, we do not. I really do believe it's time for us to catch up. This is not just a gap, this is a pretty glaring hole for our district, our community, and most importantly, of course, our kids. And adopting a program benefits these same 3 groups, district, community, and our kids. For the district, this is a smart financial decision. A huge portion of this program is state funded. The district will see an immediate increase in enrollment as these families connect with the School District of New Berlin earlier, and therefore increase funding over the long term as they stay with the school district longer. Studies have also shown that dollars invested into 4K programs are paid back, as early intervention now greatly reduces costly interventions later. For our community, the second group, 4K signals that we prioritize education. Families have a lot of choices, and right now families are choosing other districts and therefore other communities and other local businesses and other houses. A lack of 4K sends a signal that we are not prioritizing early education, and that perception really matters when families are deciding where to live and where to work. And most importantly, of course, is our kids. We know that 4K is critical. There are decades of research showing that early learning not just improves the academic, but more importantly, the social and the emotional skills of these kids who are then in the school system for the long haul. If we truly expect excellence, as our motto says, we need to build it from the ground up with a strong foundational 4K program for all our kids. I really appreciate your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is President's Message. I'll just mention that myself and Renee attended the State Education Convention this year. I acted as delegate since Amy was out of town and she was not able to attend. After my experience this year, later on, probably going to be putting on our agenda whether or not we want to stay in WASB. There wasn't a single amendment passed that had any support of this board, I don't think. There were a couple that were presented that did not pass that I think this board would have supported. So I don't feel that the WASB really represents us and our community. Also, we were invited to another organization that I am going to put forward that I think we should consider in lieu of the WASB, which was much more aligned to our values and our goals that we have here in the district. So there'll be more coming about that on a future agenda. Renee, did you have anything to add about your experience? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's all right. I echo everything you've said.
Okay.
I absolutely agree.
All right. Okay, then on to the administrative team report.
I'll defer my updates to the agenda, so I'll hand it over to Claire, who is going to say her share, and then she's got to leave because I guess we're not important to her anymore.
My little brother needs me to pick him up.
Okay, got it.
All right, students are back in the classroom as second semester is underway. Due to the cold day last week, students were welcomed back to the classroom Wednesday, January 22nd. In the engineering classrooms, students had the opportunity to receive insight about the engineering field from a speaker that works at Generac. Additionally, last week, Eisenhower and West students came together at Stringfest to display their wonderful music for family and friends. Big successes for Ike Deca and the 28 Eisenhower members that qualified for the state competition. This week, Ike Earth Club is hosting a bake sale. Proceeds are going to go to Terra Cycle and the repurposing of old school supplies. Ike Care Club helped support the MAC Fund through volunteering to take down decorations at the annual Candy Cane Holiday Lights. Eisenhower Theater is excitedly preparing for the premiere of Annie, February 14th. Both girls and boys basketball have had great seasons so far with more games to come. This week, girls take on Wisconsin Lutheran and West Allis Central. Boys basketball takes on West Allis Central at home Friday. Congratulations to the Eisenhower Middle School cheerleading team for placing 5th in their state competition earlier in January. Finally, a big congratulations to Ike alumni Sarah Stadler and senior Jack Bretzman on receiving the All-American Award at the United Soccer Convention in Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have our district reports, the incident report, the enrollment report, suspension report, and donation report. Mr. Seidel, would you please read the donation report?
It would be my pleasure. First one is for Ronald Reagan Home and School, reimburse Ronald Reagan for the purchase of a rug for the art room in the amount of $382.45. Next one was for Eisenhower, Grotkin Family Trust, purchase girls' golf items not covered by the budget in the amount of $1,000. The next one was for New Berlin West Basketball Booster Club, purchase sweatshirts for the girls' basketball team in the amount of $349.75. Next one was for New Berlin West. Green Bay Packers support football at New Berlin West with the high school play of the week in the amount of $1,000. Next one was also for New Berlin West. It's New Berlin West Swim Boosters Incorporated purchase equipment for the swim team in the amount of $1,350. Next was for New Berlin West. New Berlin West players purchase a cooler for the concession sales in the PAC in the amount of $1,436.63. The next one was for Poplar Creek PTO, pay for the Badger bus to Madison for the fourth grade trip in the amount of $1,000. Next one was for Orchard Lane PFC, support co-curriculars with a payment to the Pokemon Club in the amount of $640.80. Next one was for New Berlin West, Metropolitan Builders Association of Greater Milwaukee to support construction program at New Berlin West in the amount of $500. Again, New Berlin West, Green Bay Packers support football program at New Berlin West in the amount of $1,000. Next one was also for New Berlin West, New Berlin Girls Soccer Booster Club, pay for the huddle fee at New Berlin West in the amount of $1,000. Again, New Berlin West Baseball Boosters Incorporated, purchase baseball equipment for New Berlin West in the amount of $4,586.65. And lastly, for Eisenhower, the Radius Packaging, support Eisenhower with a donation of 2 mobile standing desks in the amount of $600, bringing our total donations to $14,846.28. And thank you so much to our generous donors, and that ends my report.
Thank you. Then we have our consent agenda, which includes the notice, the approval of minutes of the board meeting of January 13th, the financial reports, the WIAA co-op sports renewal for boys wrestling and girls wrestling, the WIAA co-op sports renewal for boys swim and dive, the WIAA co-op sports renewal for boys hockey and girls hockey, and the Global Scholars Club application. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. On to the regular agenda. First up on the regular agenda is the presentation regarding universal K-4 programming to begin in the 2025-2026 school year.
Okay. So our intended outcomes of the presentation tonight is to share history and local comparisons, some data and research, feasibility and the cost of adding a 4K, what would 4K programming look like if we were to have one, our recommendation and the potential next steps. As you had heard earlier, we do not offer a K-4 program. It is not required by DPI or state statute. However, we are only one of few districts in the state that do not offer K-4. We're the only one in Waukesha County and probably all neighboring counties as well throughout southeast Wisconsin. We do have an early learning program that we've put into place since 2018, which was in lieu of trying to have a universal K-4. The proposed approach for that was to try and catch as many kids as we could that weren't ready for kindergarten. And we believe that we've had a successful program along with tuition-based programming for families wanting that 4K experience. So why now? I think based on the presentations that we shared with the board previously, our subgroups in the district are on the rise. So that would include English language learners, students that are economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities. The EL, or the English language learners and economically disadvantaged subgroups, consistently rank among highest in Waukesha County. And then our special education needs are more significant than they have been in the past. We do believe that 4K programming would be an educational benefit to all students and specifically for our subgroup populations. This is a slide, and several of these slides are slides that we've shared with the board previously. But as you can note that we are, again, amongst the highest as far as economically disadvantaged percentage in Waukesha County. IEPs, while low comparatively, there's really a major cohort in between the 10.4 and the 12, and we are kind of in that group. But again, our student needs are becoming much more significant. And then I did want to touch specifically on this. When last we spoke to the board in the fall, our numbers were at 141, and we now are at 157, just even since last we spoke to the board. So 16 additional students since the last time we've shared data with you. And then as far as this goes, these are the percentage of all kindergarten students at or above benchmark, which you'll see both in early reading and in early math.
This is with the new cut scores, though, right? So these new numbers are jumping up.
No, these are based on our FastBridge, which is our universal screener, because the for example, the forward exams don't start till third grade, but this just gives you a snapshot of where our kids are when they are in kindergarten. This is data from our early learning program that we wanted to share, and as you can see on the far left side, these are actually individual kids from our early learning program. Please note that the Dial 4 percentile and the early reading percentile, they're two different tests. Because we don't use FastBridge at the fourth grade, we used in K4, we used the Dial 4 for that. But that is a really good indicator for us on the Ready, Set, Go screener. And what we've highlighted in that box shows you, and these are students that are part of the subgroups that we're talking about, students that are EL, economically disadvantaged, or are students with disabilities. We want to highlight the fact that we believe that our early learning program has done a very nice job of supporting those students. And as you can see, they're making significant progress in some cases, some small progress, but progress, therefore, with those students in those subgroups that we're aiming to target. But again, we do believe this would support all of the students in that program. We have done surveys and site visits, specifically Greendale, Elmbrook, Mukwonago, Muskego, Hamilton, and Pewaukee. And we did survey all Waukesha County school districts. These were the only ones that we did receive feedback from. And note that obviously Greendale is not in Waukesha County. But again, what they're suggesting is that their student achievement with the subgroup is commensurate to their peer groups. Kindergarten readiness, they're better prepared for school routines. Early parental engagement, they're receiving positive survey results. And even for us too, there would be highly qualified staff, so all of our teachers would be DPI certified staff, where right now, they may not be getting that, whether they're at the private daycare or at their parochial school, they may not actually be certified staff. And then we would provide a rigorous curriculum. We believe that the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards would be our floor, just like we have for our standards K-12. That's our floor. We believe that we would enrich and provide a rigorous curriculum as needed for our students. Pewaukee, when we did a site visit, they did share that most of their students were already coming into 5K with high achievement on the fall screener. But again, we're trying to reach the kids with the most needs. As the speaker shared earlier, you want to provide those interventions earlier if you can. And for us, that would be a full year earlier to help and support all those students move forward. Please note that we would also be supporting not only kids that are low academically, but also enhancing our students that may be identified as talented and gifted as well, on the other side of things. And then specifically with Elmbrook, they are seeing progress, but again, they are one of the most recent implementers of K4, and so they don't really have a lot of additional data to share with us. Please note that we did try and ask for information prior to their implementation in 2001, I believe, and we did not receive that information upon request. Pardon me? 2021. Again, when we reached out to Elmbrook, again, they have the most recent K4 program. And other things that they're sharing is that they are retaining more students when students start at K4. It's not uncommon for a family that enrolls a child in K4 outside of the district to continue enrollment in that school. As you are aware, we do have private and parochial schools in the district now that may be providing some of these students that we do not currently serve, and they may be choosing to stay. But based on what Elmbrook has provided, they've realized a 99% retention rate of students who did participate in their 4K and continued to 5K, excluding those kids that actually ended up moving out of the district. Feasibility. How many could we serve? What space do we have? What type of staff would we need, and what would the potential costs be? Our programming focus would be simple: numeracy skills, literacy skills, dispositions, learning through play. And while we wouldn't typically allow our kids to go to the PE teacher, those would be additional costs. So what we would do is we would take physical education, music, and art and do that within the classroom settings with their K4 teachers. Based on the data that we received from other K4 districts in Waukesha County, we were a little surprised that they, on average, serve about 80% of their eligible students. We originally were targeting closer to 60, 65% when we initially started our research on this. But if you were to take that average, we're applying that average from across Waukesha County. Some are higher, some are lower. And that would be 80% of our eligible students at this time is approximately 210 students. We would try and divide that in half as best we could. Now, it may not be exactly 50-50 because you have to take into account geography, bus pickups, bus routes, and so on. But we would try and balance that out as best we could. And we were expecting about 5 classrooms per session. We would be advocating for a half-day program, even though there are some K4 programs that are full day. All of the other Waukesha County school districts have a half-day program. We believe that would be suffice. And then we would support a half-day wraparound care for those families that would need it. Location. Most, as of right now, the most room that we have, the most capacity that we have is at Ronald Reagan, and that is where we currently house our early learning program for 3- and 4-year-olds. We do have additional sections available at Elmwood, and when we say 4 to 5 and 1 to 2, it depends on how we're going to end up distributing the students that we have. And a lot of it is going to be driven by who enrolls, right? So we're going to try and keep it local to their geography because that would make the most sense. And we also want to try and keep as homogeneous of a group as possible when we can and if we can. When I say that, for example, we're not going to be sending kids that are located over here at Elmwood over to Reagan when a lot of those kids will be going to West. We would probably house the Elmwood kids at Elmwood that are going to be future Elmwood students. And so we're going to take a better look at that, but it's going to be driven by who enrolls. We currently don't have sections of Poplar Creek and Orchard Lane that we would feel comfortable starting with. While we do have some capacity, we want to maintain that capacity for potential growth within those individual schools. Now, for example, it's our understanding that we're going to get another significant request for families that want to leave West Dallas, West Milwaukee, similar to what we had a couple of years ago. And again, right now, those kids are being split between Eisenhower and Orchard Lane. So we want to make sure that we're projecting that potential. But again, it's never done until it's done, but we want to make sure that we're prepared for those potential enrollment occurrences. And then we would provide transportation for eligible 4K resident students to be provided by the district. Projected staffing needs, and please know that these are projections based on the 210 or 80% of our students. Obviously, if it was less, we would need less staff. If it was more, we would need more staff. But again, I think to err on the side of just sticking with the averages, this is what we are projecting. Wraparound care, which is very typical, again, when you're offering a K-4 program, families want, either because it's only a half day, some families may want that wraparound care. So if I've got a morning student, that we can do wraparound care in the afternoon. If they're in the afternoon for our K-4, they get wraparound in the morning. We don't necessarily have capacity in the school district to provide wraparound care for all students. Therefore, we would be working with a third party, which we're currently working with a couple different third parties to consider that wraparound care sessions, while at, Elmwood could offer one, capacity for wraparound care is approximately 60% at Reagan. And then again, we're really trying to focus on some off-site wraparound care. And again, we're in conversations and doing that. I'm going to hand this portion over to Patrick as it relates to our estimated financial projections.
Thanks, Joe. You can see here, I've done some estimates for the next 3 years. The top line is a DPI startup grant for 4K. Again, that grant can be split between 4K, schools that are starting 4K, but there aren't many schools in the state that are starting a 4K or that haven't already had a 4K. So you see there the grants that we would get for 210 students in each year. It's a 2-year grant. That's a startup again. Equalized aid, you could see the growth in those particular areas. What I am estimating is a worst-case scenario for a split between equalization aid and property taxes. So you see the property tax impact of those students going forward. We would receive some categorical aid. Categorical aid is an aid per pupil. It's not like revenue limit aid where it's a number that you get, and it can go up and down based on your state aid. So we have a total of $1.2 million in the first year, $2.1 million in the second year, $1.8 million in the third year. The next slide, you see our estimated expenses, looking at staffing, both certified and classified, ancillary costs. So that would be, for example, classroom materials, furniture, manipulatives, additional playground construction at the sites where we have 4K for a total of between $135,000 and $77,000. Transportation, this also is one of those where I worked with Mike Bennett at Durham to put an estimate together, but until we know how many students we're going to have, and until we know how many of those students are going to request busing, it's going to be a little difficult to project that. So we tried to project this high, and we'll see where that would come in. So the last slide, you see net in each year. Our first year, because of the startups, we're estimating a $400,000 net. That net can be used as general revenue in the district. Okay. And then in 2026, you see a larger jump, primarily because we still have some aid from the state coming in for the 4K startup. And then in 2027, settling down in the 800,000. What I would estimate going forward is between probably $400,000 and $800,000 a year net to the district that it can use for programming, not just in 4K, but throughout the district. Or, for example, in 4K, if we need to add a special education teacher, we have dollars there that we can do that without having a negative impact to the general fund or our current special education.
I want to note to the board that our next presentation, the next agenda item is the budget forecast, which takes into account potential K-4 programming or not, and what that would mean, the bigger picture related to our budget moving forward. So given the current levels and draws on state aid, it's difficult to estimate the impact on our taxpayers. Again, per Patrick, we are estimating conservatively 15 cents per thousand of equalized value, which in turn could be about a $52.50 increase on a $350,000 property value. Please note that there are other factors as property values, enrollment, biennial budgets, and more that could have an impact on whether or not our local taxpayers will actually see an increase in school taxes. So again, that's a very complicated, complex thing. Some of those things are beyond our control. But again, we just want to share this with you to note that just because we're suggesting the 5250 doesn't automatically mean it's going to go up by that much. So what are our recommendations and potential next steps? We are recommending to proceed with a half-day K-4 programming at the start of the 2025-2026 school year. We are asking for the board to have a final decision no later than the end of February. Specifically, we will be coming back with the board. Obviously, there's a lot here for you all to consider, and we certainly don't expect a decision tonight because this is certainly a really big decision that impacts a lot of different people in different ways. To allow us to, communicate to the public, registration, get our facility renovations done, hire our staff, and more. Pending your approval, again, we're going to continue to research and purchase curriculum. As far as employment services, we're going to work with our early learning program, which again has been a successful program thus far. Unfortunately, just not netting the amount of kids that a universal K-4 program could provide. We would finalize our staffing needs and begin hiring. Logistics, we would solidify the wraparound care portion with a third-party vendor, finalize facility and space needs, finalize transportation routes and times. Again, some of these things won't actually happen until we start getting the enrollment in. And then Dave and us and our team, we would execute our communications plan, announcing the programming to the community. Dan, can you help me with the got it on there? Thank you. We do got it. Thank you, Chrome. That's our presentation. We'd be happy to answer as many questions as we have. We may not have all the answers to them, but again, we'll be happy to provide those details at the next meeting. Ron?
Do we have the capacity after 4K? Like, obviously, there's a plan for 212, is that what we decided? 210 students. After that, when they go to their community school, do we have the capacity to absorb that without increasing class sizes hugely?
Right now, we do.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are we looking at doing some wraparound care at Reagan, some at Elmwood, and then some at a third party? Or would we say we can't handle everything all at the schools, we're gonna do all third?
I think right now our preference would be to do most of it with a third party. There are some things that come into play. So as we've been talking to some of these third parties, for example, let's say my kids at Elmwood and I've got a K-4, well, let's use a different example. I've got a K-4 student at Orchard Lane, but that's,
Elmwood?
I'm gonna go with, I've got a kid at Reagan that's in K-4. But I've got a sixth grader at Orchard Lane or at Poplar Creek. I may want to just have one pickup stop after school because let's say my sixth grader is doing wraparound care at Orchard Lane. I don't want to have to stop at the third-party provider and at Orchard Lane. I want to be able to pick my kid up at both kids up at Orchard Lane. So we may have to coordinate the after-school care, the before-school care. But I do believe, again, that we would prefer to, because the undertaking of a wraparound care is going to be contingent on enrollment too for those third-party groups, that they would, we'd prefer that they just kind of took them all. And then also to make sure that we are keeping the space for future expansion as well within our current enrollment.
That's my concern, is we get 210 kids this year, then we get 90%. And if we actually do have the retention, which is a good thing, all those numbers go up, and we're running more of a wraparound program at our school, and we're here to educate children, not run wraparound care. So
Yeah, and that's why, again, we would likely, it would be, put it this way, there are going to be exceptions to that rule, but the majority of those would be going to the third party for the wraparound.
my other concern is we're gonna have parents that are upset because it's gonna be a lottery, and
Correct.
my kid gets to go to Reagan, well, someone else's kid has to go to
Correct.
wraparound care somewhere else. Okay.
It sounds like there's going to be a lot of logistical planning. Who in admin would be doing that?
We're already doing it, so it's basically our entire team. It's, myself, Patrick, Dave on the communication side, Patrick on the financials and transportation, Matt Stepneski, who couldn't be here, our director of elementary schools. He's been working with the third-party groups.
Okay.
He's also working with the early learning program on programming itself. He's also the one with Caroline Habig, who's a coordinator of teaching and learning, who's actually done the site visits also. So we've got a big crew, but again, depending on the board's decision, we would then continue to work actually with our current staff to, from our literacy coaches to our math coaches to kind of bring everybody else in. We don't want to do that unless we need to. And so again, that's why we want to come in as early as we can to make sure that, we have the board's support to move forward before we start kind of doing all of that.
Is the wraparound third party, is it going to be the same wraparound?
That would be our preference, that it would be one
All or nothing?
group.
Yeah, okay.
And right now, we're talking with two that potentially have the capacity to handle the load per se.
Have we considered doing the entire program offsite? I think that's what Muskego did. I don't know if they still do that, but they did it all at like a third-party.
Yeah, we are considering that.
I just think the logistics is just gonna be really tough with all that stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, it can be done, because most districts actually do house the K-4 in the district and then do wraparound care elsewhere. That is something that we're considering, but we also, if we're doing the full programming, say with a third party, there would be additional cost to us. My hope is that we would negotiate that away, but who's to say that they wouldn't charge me for the space to house our K-4 kids? And then at that point, I'm not sure that I would want to do that.
Of the site visits that you guys did, so 80% was that number that you anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
In the other school districts, how many of the 80% used wraparound care? Do you know?
All of them.
Oh.
Let me clarify. They all have wraparound care, but sometimes it's internal, sometimes it's with a third party.
Okay. But it's of the families.
So 80% of
The kids.
Oh.
Yeah.
We will try and get that information to you.
I would imagine it's high, but I don't think it's gonna be 100%.
Yeah.
we're not anticipating 100%.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions?
Would it be 4 or 5 day?
Pardon me?
Would it be 4 or 5 days a week? Is it 5 days?
5 days.
Okay.
If we were doing full days, I've seen programs where if you're doing full days, you would typically only do 4 days. And the 5th day is kind of meant for the teachers and the staff to collaborate and work together, but that's not what we are, yeah, yeah, recover. Well, as you eloquently, you called them the little bundles of chaos or something, yeah.
I have one question for clarification. Did you say there would be a morning session and an afternoon session?
Yes,
So at both schools, at both Reagan and Elmwood?
yes.
And then the,
We believe so. Again, it's going to be driven by the enrollment, but yes, that's
Okay.
what we anticipate.
okay.
Now, would that be a lottery, or would there be a first come, first serve as to whether you get morning or afternoon?
Patrick's going to make a note of that, and we will get back to you.
I assume you'd have people just fill out a preference and try to meet them as much as you can, and
Right.
lottery after that.
These are all great questions. Thank you. So again, our goal is to, again, just try and provide as much information to you to make a sound decision. And, again, our recommendation is that we do move forward. We do believe that, as we are striving to, compare ourselves to other Waukesha County school districts, we want to make sure that we are able to work with these kids sooner than later to support them as best we can. And again, it would be supporting all of our students, not just those that have specific needs.
And we have to provide busing both ways, correct? To and from school for this? For the 4K?
Can you repeat that? I'm just having trouble
That's
hearing.
right.
I'm
We have to
sorry.
provide busing to and from school for the 4K program, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then in lieu of not taking the kids home if they're going to wraparound, we would pay for busing to the third party.
in most cases. Like we would certainly do it there, but we may not do it to every third party
Gotcha.
because we don't want to send a satellite bus out to, say, Hal's Corners Lutheran if somebody wants,
Yeah, that,
wraparound care
if they
there.
don't go
or-
home or one of our same
Correct.
third parties, then they'd
Correct.
be responsible for their own. Okay,
Correct.
that makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else?
If you have questions between now and the next meeting, please let me know. We're happy to provide that. We'll get, responses to the questions that you provided. We're going to do our best to get that information. I know districts are very busy, but whenever we've asked, we don't necessarily get full cooperation when we do. So are we okay to move on then, Janet?
Yes, we can go on then to the budget forecast.
Yeah, so I think this next piece kind of takes it at a much more macro level as we're talking about the budget. We've provided an annual update to you related to our budget forecasts, and we essentially have 4 slides for you. And each slide is kind of a different scenario. There are going to be 2 proposals that we have that are without a K4, and 2 proposals that would be with a K4 in consideration. We're not asking you for your approval at this time, but anyway, just want to make sure that we get you up to speed where we need to. So our intended purpose is to provide an update for you over the course of the next several years, present the various strategic financial options, and then discuss impact options related to K4. And then I also wanted to let you know that we do have the Outdoor Facilities Task Force that we've been working with. Again, as you know, we are in process of doing the wellness screening and the feasibility study with that. One of the things that we've talked about is, if there were to be a potential match from the district to raise, to support a dollar-for-dollar match, we want to make sure that you're aware of what we believe we're able to consider as it relates to that as well as part of this. We will be needing a decision on K4 again prior to March, and then we will be asking the board to also kind of give us some direction on where you want to move, if at all, related to the facilities projects that we are, again, in process of working on. So this first slide is, we'll call it option one. This would be, not having a K-4 program, but that right now the board has asked us to utilize $1.2 million annually for Fund 41, which is our capital maintenance budget. We've done a really good job of supporting that budget financially and meeting the needs of the district with those allocated dollars. Specifically, what I want to point out here, though, and we have talked about this previously, the question for the board is, do you want to do a year by year by year drawdown of fund balance to support Fund 41, or do you want to do it all in 1 year? There are advantages to doing it both ways. We believe that it would be advantageous to the district, especially our taxpayers, to do a one-time drawdown. But let's kind of get into the details. A few pieces that I want you to just kind of note are the bottom line of the top portion. And that is the percentage that we have available in fund balance. So we are currently at almost 33% fund balance. Our policy is a 10% fund balance. But we know that we've strategically built up our fund balance to strategically handle our bridge between now and 2030, which is when we are actually winding down the debt within the operating budget. So there is certainly a light at the end of that tunnel. And now we can actually see it nice and clear. But as you can see here, we are drawing down the fund balance. If you were to do it year by year by year by year, we're drawing down that fund balance down gradually to eventually get us to almost 20% in 2030, which is when the majority of the debt within the operating budget falls off. That is still a very healthy fund balance. Again, twice the amount as per our board policy. The other piece that I want to share with you is, what does that mean in millions of dollars? So as you can see on the chart on the bottom right, we have $20 million in fund balance, and we would annually draw that down to 29 and 30, which would still leave us with that $14 million in fund balance, which is again roughly 20% fund balance. So this is what it looks like if we were to do an annual drawdown to support the board's request for that $1.2-ish million annually for Fund 41. Now let me take you to the next slide. Again, this is not K4, but this is if we were to take a one-time drawdown of fund balance with Fund 41. As you can see, that $14 million happens earlier because we're drawing it down in 1 year. The difference is this. Our taxpayers are only going to, they will experience a much less financial impact because we are going to be hit with the maximum state aid penalty of 15% in 1 year. As opposed, and so what happens when we now are getting less state aid, that means more from local property taxpayers. Well, if we do it at once, that means it doesn't have to happen year after year after year after year. While next year it's going to be 15%, it could be 10% the second year, another 8% the third year, up to 15% in the fourth year. And so again, we're kind of taking our hit on the state aid in 1 year as opposed to over several years. So that is the advantage to doing a one-time drawdown of fund balance for Fund 41. And again, neither of these options are with K4 even factored in. Now let's move on to a K4 or a 4K taken into consideration with that revenue that we had presented previously and what that means here. So now if we have a K4 program, figure in those that revenue and the expenses, And just again, the year after year after year, fund balance drawdown for Fund 41, it does get us, now if you look at the bottom line of that upper chart, we're now starting at that 33% roughly, but now we're driving down annually, and we actually end up closer to 25% in fund balance, in that last year in 2030. So that's a 5% difference between not having a K4 and having a K4. Let's look at the bottom right chart again. Again, we're annually drawing down for Fund 41 out of fund balance, which is strategic. But as you can see, a big difference between what we have here and what you saw with no K4, you're talking a much larger rate of fund balance. Again, that 5%, now we're actually closer to $18 million in fund balance in 2030, as opposed to what you saw on the previous slide, $14 million. And then let's go to the last slide. And this is going to be our recommendation based on us recommending the K4 program and also recommending a one-time fund balance drawdown. Again, as you can see, let's look at the top chart, bottom line, starting at 33%. Now you're ending closer to 27% in 2030. And now if you look at the bottom chart on the right, now you're looking at almost $19 million in 2030 as compared to even and that's pretty close, that 19 million is close to the annual drawdown, which is 18 plus million. When you're looking at those big numbers, they're approximately the same. It still gets you there, slightly higher in this version. But again, it gets us back to our fund balance of where we are today, or closer to where we are today than where we're not. Let me just wrap with this, Mitch, and then we'll take it. And I'm going to defer to Patrick if you're going to come at me. Yeah. So again, we recommend option 4, one-time reduction in state aid, then rather than multiple years again, to support taxpayer relief, to combine the potential revenue from K4, if you approve it, would certainly solidify our financial bridge to the elimination of the major debt in the operating budget in 2030. And we actually, if you end up with this recommendation, we believe that the district will be very financially sound 2030 and beyond as well. Because again, now we're back up to the 25% fund balance. Again, this continues to support the board's wishes of $1.2 million in fund balance. And then, again, healthy fund balance strengthens our capital maintenance fund and provides initial capital maintenance funding for commitments related to outdoor facilities. I want to touch on this last bullet point because it's not just about K4, it's also about commitments that are related to K4. So as you can see, if you look at this last slide, or the slide before, we're actually drawing down more than the allocation of the $1.2 million from fund balance. And we believe that we have approximately $1.75 million and roughly $2 million that we could support in outdoor facilities work if the board chooses to do so. If the board wants to do some sort of match with a fundraise, we do feel comfortable with being able to navigate that up to, again, $1.75 to $2 million. We're not asking for approval of the K4 tonight, nor that specific amount at this time, but we are going to be looking for that, for some sort of direction and approval sometime next month. So with that, Mitch and Ron, we're happy to take questions.
Option 3 and 4 seem like the same in terms of 4K, but they're just the annual fund, the way we do the drawdown.
Mm-hmm.
But the salaries and the other objects for the expenses aren't the same. I was curious why that would be. It's like for FY 2028, it's 66.9 million for option 4. and it's 67.1 million for option 3.
And again, I'll have to go back and look at some of the inputs that I have to do for, to build the forecasts.
Okay, yeah, I just assumed the expenditures would be the same. The revenue is obviously gonna fluctuate because you've got it built in that we take the hit in that 1 year. But it seems like our revenues are higher too. Is that,
Right. Again, the revenues are higher because we're actually utilizing more of that, the net of the 4K program. And so what's going to be difficult for me, I build the forecasts, but a lot of these calculations are done inside of the model. And it's based on how I'm setting up the expenses and the projected revenues, and then how that builds from year to year. And so I don't get into how the sausage is made from forecast 5. I put the data in, and it gives me its forecast for that.
okay,
And I do want to clarify, that with the projection for the facilities, we're actually looking at closer to $2 million, but there's a couple things that we just want to solidify that, but that's probably what we'd be recommending, is that we would have up to $2 million to work with. Go ahead, Ron.
So our policy is the 20% of our operating budget, correct?
10%.
10% of our
Yep.
operating budget. Now, we're talking about 5 years from now, that's 2 biennial budgets away. We could be looking at a possible reduction in state aid over time. So we're comfortable with those numbers 5 years from now, with the,
Yeah, we're as comfortable as we can be, but I do think it allows us flexibility when you're talking the difference between, say, that what could be 27%, 25%, and 10%. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of factors, but, certainly, again, this is a projection, you're right.
correct.
And so, but again, this is where we're at as of today.
Okay, thank you.
well, and the 5 million that we would be putting in there, that's not, like you said, you're only asking for 2 for the outdoor facilities, right? So that would be used in other maintenance, that would just be pulled ahead, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, because again, we would do that one-time drawdown.
So we draw it down, put it in the account, we don't even have to spend it, so
That's
if all of a
that
sudden
is
something was
correct.
announced next year for
That is
budgets,
correct.
we could
Yeah.
potentially keep it there.
Right.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, so the way that it works is, Patrick, can you just give us a basic 101 funding formula?
Why
and
don't
how
you
that?
time me on this, Joe, because I know I catch grief for being too long-winded. When you deficit spend, when you deficit spend, a district that is property-rich like New Berlin will most often receive the hold harmless reduction in state aid, which is 15%. So if we deficit spend 1 year, you take that hit 1 year. If you deficit spend 4 years, you lose 15% all 4 years. We did this same thing a few years ago when we paid off some debt with a one-time fund balance payment. We had that 15% hit 1 year, and then the other years it went right back up. So that's the benefit.
Not bad, not bad. But again, Matt, what happens though is if, it's a yin and yang, right? So if we get less state aid, that means our local taxpayers have to cover the difference. And so, rather than have them do that over the course of 4 or 5 years, we're gonna take that hit in 1 year and, not have them have to continue to take that hit. Well, the maximum is 15%. And we certainly think it's going to be, that it can't be any more.
Oh, it's in here. Well, if I'm reading this right, then the local sources on option 3 is 41 million. And it's actually lower in the other option, it's 36, because we get less funding. Because we're spending 5 million. So they're basically saying you don't need any more money because you spent 5. And then it jumps back up the next year to more stable levels, I guess I'll
Right.
call it. So then it would go up to 43 in 2027. So it'd be 1 million more. But we're also getting more state aid too.
So a 15% aid reduction could be up to $3 million in aid. But again, if we do that over time, you take 15% every year. Granted, the 15% gets smaller every year, but that's because the amount of aid we get gets smaller every year. And that is, it's counterproductive for us trying to manage property taxes.
Again, we're not asking for your approval tonight. I do think that, again, 2 things that are on the horizon next month. What does the board want to do with the K-4 program? And then how much money does the board want to set aside for a potential match with the outdoor facilities work that we're embarking on, depending on what the wealth screen and the feasibility has to say. Again, if you have any questions between now and the next meeting, please let us know, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, then we have some policies to approve. We have our second read of the policy revisions from the semi-annual Neola Update 34-1. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer, second by Mr. Seidel to approve the policy revisions from semi-annual Neola Update 34-1. Is there any discussion? Okay, then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. And then a second read and also the approval of the Edgar policy updates, new and revised. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve the EDGAR policy updates, new and revised. Any discussion? Then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Then we just have a brief mid-year review of our Board of Education goals. Do you have can I go through the slides? All right, so this is just a refresher. So we set goals this year. We actually really kept the main goals, just changed our action items. Continue to support the superintendent achieving his academic goals by adding more reading coaches, providing more professional development, consideration of new resources, and financial resources needed to execute. So I believe there was already adding of coaches, reading coaches already. Was that?
So what we've done is we've added literacy coaches, or I'm sorry, math coaches.
Okay.
And we've also added English language learner coaches as well in the last year.
Okay. Is there anything there that you're looking for support from the board on?
No, the other thing that I did want to mention is that we are going to be embarking in professional development as it relates to our student achievement data, and that will include administration and teacher leaders, and that's going to be a 2-year cohort of learning and implementation based on cycles. So again, that's is kind of factored into our budget already. And then obviously consideration, again, that's part of the reason why we're bringing K4 as well, to consider, providing that additional support, and getting those kids, to us sooner than later. And then obviously, the financial impact that a K4 program would have as well.
Okay, and then our other one was receive data in a timely manner. How does everybody feel about that? Are we getting good data from administration? I like the updates. So, I mean, I know we have usually a weekly meeting, and then you follow with an update to make sure everybody gets that information, so.
Yeah, I really appreciate the format that you send the updates
Oh,
over.
good.
The Google Doc.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very helpful to
Good.
then refer back to it, so I appreciate that.
Excellent.
And also remember, we all need to come to our meetings prepared. So that was one of our goals. Make sure you're reading your packets ahead of time. Presentations to include information, what the district offers other than AP classes, where we are now, where do we want to go? And I think that's something that might be upcoming yet.
Yeah, we are actively working on that to just kind of provide the board what we're providing, not only like say at the elementary, but how that tracks forward into the secondary school. So something that we're trying to factor in between, because the school presentations are going to start up here shortly. So we'll be sure to do that.
Okay. On to the next one, staff. So I know the personnel committee did already meet to assess the staff survey. There were a couple areas that we identified with the lowest scores, and did come up with some ideas to try to improve those scores. So later this year, we should, after we see the next staff survey, be able to evaluate that. Renee, do you remember, did we leave off on any action items that the committee needed to do? don't
Not that I
think so.
recall, no.
Okay.
So one of the things that we are working on is a pulse survey with our staff. Unfortunately, because of the turnover that we've had in our HR department, we were anticipating getting that pulse survey out last month. We're working on getting that out actually this week. And so what we want to be able to do is, of the two different areas that the personnel committee was focused on, we want to get feedback from our staff on, say, for example, recognition, increase how we recognize or getting that recognition percentage to increase. We want to ask our staff members, well, what is it that you see important in recognition? You know, in many cases, it's probably pay, but we're trying to find other ways because, you know, we do believe we are competitive as far as it comes to pay. But, so again, we'll have that data. We'll plan on sharing that with the personnel committee, but we are a little bit behind in trying to get that info, given the circumstances.
Then fiscal, the board, so the board can make informed decisions. The finance committee will work with administration on a debt payoff plan. I think that's basically what we were talking about a little bit more here right now. Is that something the finance committee wants to continue doing, or should we just work on that as a whole board?
I mean, we can talk about it at the finance committee, but it's always going to come before the whole board.
Correct, yeah.
So it's-
I don't know if you guys want to dig a little deep. I know it's helped, I think, with the personnel committee to dig a little deeper and then bring stuff forth to everybody. So I don't know, you know, if that's something you want to do. It's
Yeah, we
up
can
to
do
you.
that.
Okay. Of course, the full board will review the long-range facility plan. So is that something that's going to be on the agenda coming up, or do
Yes.
I need to work on that with you?
Yeah, so what we've been able to do is we provided, actually, our new data dashboard kind of, shows the projects that we're completing and then kind of what's projected. And we'll be, providing those updates to the board this spring.
And then community, promote the dashboard that we already did. That was on our goal last year. So is there any plans to gather any feedback on that? Have you gotten any feedback on that? Any thoughts of making improvements? That was the one, there was a workshop at the convention that I wanted to go to, but I didn't have time to go to, which was about dashboards. So I don't know what was.
Yeah, so we
about
did
that.
include the dashboard. I believe we shared that in our annual report that goes out to every household.
I did see that.
It's kind of a, the hard copy. And then we also encouraged it in our social media as well as the Edge newsletter, which is our electronic newsletter. Quite honestly, we've not heard a lot. So, but I do think it's important to have it on our website, and We're updating that annually as we are able to.
And then ensure that the Outdoor Facilities Task Force fulfills the resolution, which I believe that
That has
that
been
resolution's
fulfilled.
been fulfilled.
Yep.
And then for us as a board intentionally to attend school activities, visit schools, and participate in Education Foundation activities. So who's going to the Toast to Education this year? I hope to see everybody. I think I'm going. I might be out of town. I don't know for sure yet, but so far I'm going. So yes, I encourage you to do that. I did have the opportunity to participate in a mock interviews for the employability class, which was really cool because I've done the junior achievement one for the fifth graders. So this time this was high school level. So they are always impressive. Our students are very well prepared.
You're not going to want to miss the last 3 concerts in the community concert series.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know if you'd like tickets. Patrick knows people.
And then this past year, we added, in addition to goals, guardrails. And so these are the ones we came up with. And so any feedback on these? These have been working for us? These are for us, board. We're good with these? Okay, so we'll keep, those are working well. And then for us personally, at board development, read great on their behalf, which is where the idea of the guardrails came from. So has everybody gotten a chance to finish reading that book?
No,
Okay.
I'm
I
sorry.
haven't either, so that's okay.
Mitch
I am all
has.
gung ho and almost finished. I haven't finished.
Have. You finished
I
it.
don't want to brag in front of everyone else that
That's
didn't do their
okay.
homework. I don't want to be
That's
that kid.
No, when you do it, you should say.
I wasn't that kid in high school. I was in front of you guys. I just grew a little more responsible as I get older.
Very impressed. So I do want to do like a little workshop where we could like discuss what we felt we learned from the book, what we can apply. When is I was thinking maybe doing it in March. If everybody's going to be around, well, actually, I might be gone in March
Yeah,
at some point.
March would not be an ideal month for me. I'll be gone for both meetings.
Oh,
so,
okay, okay.
I would prefer later in the year.
Later,
I'm
okay.
thinking like next January.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
I'm going to have to read it again. You guys are going to take so long.
Yeah, I know, I was thinking I need to read it again. Well, then, how about April?
I'm just teasing. Whatever. works.
April probably will work.
April is better.
Yeah, okay. We'll plan on doing that in April then. All right. I believe that's it then. So that's just a review of our goals and guardrails and development. And so then we have our closed session item. So there should be one motion.
I move to approve the employment services report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Spindler and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve the employment services report. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Then we have our future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7:00 p.m. in Conference Room E, which is here in the district offices, unless noted otherwise. Next meeting is February 10th, and we have one February 24th and March 10th. Other important event dates to remember is that February 17th is a staff professional learning day. There is no school. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel and a second by Mr. Helmer to adjourn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. This